Good afternoon. It's Sunday, the 11th of January. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. We open in France, where a massive rally of unity is now underway in Paris under the banner of combating terrorism with a cry for freedom. World leaders are also converging on the capital in an impressive show of support for the French people following the murders of 17 people this past week in multiple terror attacks against the Charlie Hebdo newspaper, an unarmed policewoman, and a kosher supermarket. Unity against extremism is the overriding message of the rally, which officials expect to attract up to 1 million people, serving as an illustration of the French population's love of freedom and tolerance and its rejection of murderous ideologies. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu left the country this morning, heading an Israeli delegation to take part in the Solidarity rally in France. The Prime Minister is slated to address the Jewish community in Paris later this evening. Here with more is IBA's diplomatic correspondent, Eli Wogelenter.
Today's cabinet meeting has been canceled as Prime Minister Netanyahu, Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman, Jewish Agency Chairman Natan Sharansky, Economy Minister Naftali Bennett, and Yachad Ha'am Itanu Party head Eli Yishai headed to Paris this morning to take part in today's anti-terror march. Some 40 world leaders are expected to attend, including British Prime Minister David Cameron, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, the King and Queen of Jordan, Arab League representatives, and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. U.S. President Barack Obama will not join other world leaders, but will be represented by Attorney General Eric Holder. Netanyahu will meet tonight with French President Francois Hollande at the Central Synagogue, where he will also meet with organizational leaders of the Jewish community to offer support and deliver one message.
אני יוצא לפריז כדי להשתתף בעצרת יחד עם מנהיגי העולם למאבק מחודש בטרור האסלאמי שמאיים על האנושות כולה. דבר שאני קורא לו זה שנים רבות. בערב אני אשתתף בעצרת מיוחדת יחד עם נשיא צרפת פרנסואה הולנד עם הקהילה היהודית בצרפת. אני אומר שם שכל יהודי שרוצה לעלות לארץ יתקבל כאן בזרועות פתוחות.
A number of Knesset MKs spoke out over the weekend in reaction to the terrorist attack on Friday and the previous one on Wednesday. Yesh Atid leader and former finance minister Yair Lapid expressed his condolences and said Israel is ready to provide Paris any help needed. The difficult events that have befallen France are heartbreaking, Lapid said. It is horrible that Jews are murdered because they are Jewish and intellectuals are killed because they are intellectuals, in reference to the two separate attacks in the French capital. And he said European Jewry should understand that there is only one home for Jews, and that is the State of Israel. Hatanua Party leader Tzipi Livni claimed Netanyahu had isolated Israel internationally, and that despite the fact that there is an international coalition against radical Islam in the world following the attacks in France, unfortunately, Israel is not part of it. Yoni Shetbon, formerly of Bayit Yehudi and now running for Knesset on Eli Yishai's Yachad Ha'am Itanu party, called on the government to make urgent preparations for an emergency mass aliyah of French Jews, something he said the country was not currently prepared for. Shetbon, who chairs the Knesset caucus for Olim from France and whose family hails from the country, said due to the impossible security situation for French Jews, Israel has a responsibility to allocate all necessary resources to facilitate the aliyah and absorption of Jews from France. One of his cousins was among those trapped inside the Jewish supermarket. Jewish Agency Chairman Natan Sharansky had a different slant on the various calls urging French Jews to make aliyah now. He said Israel must carefully calibrate its aliyah message to French Jews by welcoming them on the one hand, but on the other not seeming to be dancing on the blood and forging an alliance with anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is not our ally, and we do not have to act as if it is. We don't have to say it's your obligation to leave immediately, Sharansky said before flying to Paris. We have to say we will do our best so that they feel comfortable and that Israel is a great place to live as Jews. He added that it was a mistake and not smart to say to French Jews, immigrate now, and that it was also insulting to the French. When Ariel Sharon made such a comment in 2003, it triggered a mini-crisis with then French President Jacques Chirac. French immigration to Israel reached an all-time high in 2014, with some 7,000 making the move. Prior to last week's events, the Jewish Agency was predicting a further 10,000 would come in 2015, and now Sharansky says that number could reach 15,000 or more. Erin?
Thanks for that report. The 4 Jewish victims murdered in the deadly assault on a kosher supermarket in Paris are to be buried in Israel later this week. For some Jewish Parisians, the Friday terror attack is the last straw and is giving new impetus to leave the country. IBA's Margot Dukavich reports.
The deadly hostage drama at the kosher grocery store in eastern Paris, in which 4 Jews were murdered, has left France's Jewish community reeling with shock, but not surprise. The 600,000-strong Jewish community in France has already suffered a rising tide of anti-Semitic attacks. In an act of solidarity, French President François Hollande met with members of the French Jewish community this morning. Roger Suckerman, the president of the Representative Council of French Jewish Institutions, CARIF, told reporters that the Jews in France are angry and demand the government take more serious measures to ensure their security. Last night, thousands of Jews gathered in Paris to mourn the dead, singing the French and Israeli national anthems and lighting candles in their memory. Some held signs saying, "Je suis Charlie, je suis Juif." I am Charlie, I am Jewish. Many who attended expressed fear, saying they intend to immigrate to Israel. Prime Minister Manuel Valls, who also visited the scene, called on Jews to stop being afraid. Today we are all Charlie, we are all policemen, we are all Jews, he said. The dead were identified as Johan Cohen, 20, an employee at the store. He was the grandson of a famous Jewish Tunisian singer, Doucha, who died last month. His parents, of Algerian and Tunisian descent, immigrated to Paris in the 1960s. He was a fan of rap music and recently posted an image on his Facebook page bearing the popular Je suis Charlie slogan in honor of the 12 people slaughtered at the Charlie Hebdo offices in Paris on Wednesday. He is believed to have been the first victim of terrorist Ahmedi Koulibaly, who stormed into the store and gunned down 4 people. Yoav Khattab, 21, a student of Tunisian origin and the son of the chief rabbi of Tunis, Benjamin Khattab, visited Israel last month, where he traveled the country with an Israeli flag tied on his backpack, declaring Israel is the only place to live. An ardent Zionist, he had planned to immigrate to Israel and wanted to serve in the army. Philippe Barham, 40, a computer engineer. Hava Maimon, a close friend of Valerie Barham, Philippe's wife, said the couple's son died 3 years ago to an illness, and now she has lost her husband. She was crying. She does not know what to do. She is left alone with 3 children. An observant Jew, Barham had gone to the supermarket to buy groceries before the Sabbath. Françoise Michal Sada, 64, leaves behind 2 children who live in Israel. He was described by friends and family as a remarkable husband and father, a man who lived for his family. According to local media reports, all 4 are to be buried in Israel later this week. Many synagogues in the French capital were closed for prayers over the Sabbath because of the security situation. Policemen were stationed outside. While many businesses and stores remained closed in Paris's Jewish quarter yesterday, some remained open. Jocelyne Mimoni said she purposely opened the store to show that Jews and the people of France will not allow terrorism to dictate their lives. Alon Habib, who works at the King Falafel Palace, echoed similar sentiments, saying while the events of recent days have frightened everyone, closing the stores will mean terrorism has won. Monique Lefebvre, who shops at the hyper-kosher supermarket daily, said the massacres must stop. Peace should prevail, she said. A local resident, identified as Aurélie, said her baby was in a nursery opposite the supermarket when the attack occurred. I am afraid for my family and also disgusted with what is happening, she said. Others visited the supermarket yesterday to pay their respects. Everyone is afraid, said Maria Pinto. You leave your house, go to work, and you don't know whether you will return. These mad men have changed our lives, she said. Details of the ordeal suffered by those caught inside the supermarket during the deadly attack perpetrated by Ahmedi Koulibaly has started to emerge. Lassana Batili, a Muslim employee at the supermarket, has been hailed a hero by French press. According to the reports, his quick thinking saved the lives of some 15 customers. He led them to a walk-in freezer in the basement where he hid them, turned off the light and asked them to remain quiet. During the ordeal, Batili left the basement and escaped through a freight elevator. Police at first thought he was a terrorist and cuffed him, but later set him free after he told them of the customers he had hidden in the freezer and details of what had occurred. Michael B. told French media he entered the store with his 3-year-old son when he saw Koulibaly armed with 2 Kalashnikov rifles. I grabbed my son by the collar and fled to the back of the store and down into the basement where we hid in a walk-in freezer. We were terrified, he said. A store employee went down to the basement and ordered him and others to go upstairs, where others were being held hostage. Koulibaly told them to put their phones on the ground. He spoke of Palestine, French prisons and his brothers in Syria. One of the customers tried to grab a weapon Koulibaly had left on the counter. He turned and shot the customer dead at point-blank range. Hours later, special French commando forces stormed into the supermarket, setting off charges before shooting Koulibaly dead and freeing the hostages. With Al-Qaeda threatening to perpetrate more attacks in France, members of the Jewish community fear that the recent days mark only the start and fear that they will be singled out by terrorists yet again. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
France remains on high alert in the aftermath of the terror attacks. IBA's Alexander Jen has been following the developments and joins me now here in the studio with the latest.
Thousands of police and soldiers have been deployed in the French capital. The international search is ongoing to locate the female accomplice of Ahmadi Koulibaly, who was killed by security forces and believed responsible for the murders at the supermarket and a policewoman on Thursday. Hayat Boumediene, the 26-year-old partner of the supermarket attacker, has reportedly fled to Syria via Turkey. She's the world's most wanted woman. Hayat Boumediene is the alleged accomplice of Ahmadi Koulibaly, the murder at the Jewish supermarket. Now, there's an intensive search for her. Reports indicate that she fled to Syria. A Turkish official confirms that Boumediene was not in France at the time of the attacks. On January 2nd, she and a companion passed through Istanbul's Sabiha Gökçen airport. The two stayed in Istanbul, where a unity rally for France was held, until January 4th. Then they likely flew to Urfa, Turkey, and disappeared, most likely heading for Syria. Former U.S. intelligence officer Cedric Layton talks about the importance of acting quickly on this kind of information to prevent attacks.
I think the biggest challenge for countries now is really information sharing and being able to act on that information in a quick and rapid fashion that would actually prevent these types of attacks.
Just today, more information regarding Ahmadi Koulibaly surfaced. In a video, he pledges allegiance to ISIS and claims he is a soldier of Caliphate. He also defends the terror attacks in France and says that he and the Kouachi brothers were working together, though right now we cannot confirm that there was any mention of Boumediene. Although Boumediene is not assumed to be in France, French authorities have stepped up security in all parts of the country for fear of another terrorist attack. Prime Minister Manuel Valls says there are around 1,000 troops that have been deployed to anti-terrorism surveillance. Just today, 2,300 police officers have been sent to patrol areas of France. Furthermore, additional special protection units will be deployed to protect the many world leaders attending the rally tonight in Paris. Enhanced security has also helped to ease the French back into normal life following the attacks. Despite the noticeable sadness, people are resuming their daily routines, and tourists are out seeing the sights. Aaron, the events of the past several days have left the residents somewhat traumatized, and it remains to be seen if and when the French capital will return to normal.
Thanks, Alex, for that report. Well, here at home, scores of Israelis gathered for a vigil in Tel Aviv last night to mourn the victims of the multiple terror attacks in Paris. The crowd lighted memorial candles and recited prayers. Some in attendance lamented the precarious situation of French Jewry and spoke about the need for the community to move to a safe haven here in Israel. A representative for the city's French community and an official of the French embassy in Israel were present at the event, along with many Jews who immigrated to Israel from France and Deputy Minister of Religious Affairs Eli Ben-Dahan.
I'm really in shock. I can't comprehend it. It's a great disaster and I'm so sad. I think that French Jews need to immigrate to Israel. There's no security there.
צריכים לעלות לארץ עכשיו כי אין ביטחון יותר בצרפת.
It's great to see the unity of the Jewish nation. Our families in France, and it's hard to put into words our feelings and fears.
כל מיני רגשים שאי אפשר כל כך להסביר.
אני פשוט נעלבתי כיהודי ישראלי.
I was offended as a Jew and as an Israeli. We hope things like this wouldn't happen again.
באירופה, וזה בדיוק כמו שקרה אתמול. כל לדבר על טרור, אנחנו
Instead of dealing with terror, we're laying our dead to rest. The Jewish victims are part of us. They were killed because they were Jews. I was offended and upset.
בגלל שהם יהודים, זה מאוד העליב אותי, מאוד התרגזתי, ואני עושה את המינימום שאני יכול לעשות.
המסר היא להעביר לכל אנשים שנמצאים באירופה, ובעיקר
The message to all those in Europe and especially in central France is to leave. Even if they don't have a Zionist drive, they must leave the area. It's like a ticking bomb. We feel that it's only just the beginning and it can get much worse.
להתרחק מהאזור הזה, כי זה פצצה שצפויה להתפוצץ בכל רגע נתון.
קודם כל אנחנו, עם ישראל הוא
The people of Israel are one nation, no matter where. We are mourning with the Jews of France for the despicable murder of 4 Jews, and we are praying for the wounded for full recovery. But also, we are here, the state of Israel, and we need to take care of Jews worldwide and call them to immigrate to Israel. There's no other option.
A small group of Palestinians in Ramallah also held a rally in solidarity with the French people today. Organizers said that the gathering's purpose was to stand alongside the French people, who usually stand by the Palestinians. An official with the Palestinian Authority said that the shocking acts violate the values of the French people, particularly freedom of speech. Senior PLO member Yasser Abed Rabo also used the opportunity to claim that the Palestinians can relate to the attacks in France because they too are the victims of terror.
This is a Palestinian message to the French people that we stand firmly with you against terrorism. We are the victims of terrorism as you are, and we will together be able to save the values that we fight for, the values of liberty, of freedom, and especially freedom of expression, of equality among all nations and all races.
In other news, 2 suspects have been arrested in connection with last night's firebombing of the German Hamburger Morgenpost newspaper, which reprinted cartoons published from Charlie Hebdo. No one was inside the office at the time of the attack, but 2 rooms on the lower floors and documents were burned. It's unclear if the publication of the cartoons was the motivation for the attack. Staying in Germany, where a rally against racism and xenophobia drew some 35,000 people last night in Dresden, which has become the epicenter of anti-immigration protests organized by the Pegida organization. The city's mayor, Helma Oz, vowed to not let hate divide Dresden. Fears are rising that the attacks in Paris might boost anti-immigration movements around Europe and inflame a culture war about the place of religion and ethnic identity in society. Turning to Lebanon, where 2 suicide bombers targeted a coffee shop in the northern city of Tripoli last night that killed 9 people and wounded more than 30. The al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front in Syria claimed responsibility for the blast that took place in the Lebanese city's predominantly Alawite neighborhood of Jabal Mohsen that has been plagued by years of deadly Syria-related clashes with the rival Sunni neighborhood of Bab al-Tabane. Local media has identified both attackers as Lebanese citizens in their 20s who were trained in a mountainous region on the border with Syria and were wanted in connection with previous attacks on military posts in Tripoli. The majority of the city's Sunni population support the predominantly Sunni Syrian rebels who are trying to overthrow Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Returning home and taking a look at local finance, and with no currency trading on Sundays, the shekel remains the same, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange started off the trading week with a mixed performance. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. Turning to the weather, and even though the winter storm has peaked and is mostly behind us, there was more snowfall in the north today, and there are still areas affected by the adverse conditions. The entrance to Tzfat remains sealed, as well as several roads in the Golan Heights due to heavy snowfall, and schools in those areas also stayed closed. There were other road closures due to flooding, especially between Kalia and Ein Gedi along the Dead Sea. Tens of thousands of Israelis made their way north over the weekend to enjoy the snowfall that has accumulated over the past several days. Those who went to the Hermon ski site were disappointed to find that it is still closed to visitors because roads leading to the mountain are still blocked by snow that can reach up to 1.5 meters high. Staff at the ski resort say that they're doing their best to open the resort tomorrow. And the wintry joy wasn't limited to the north or the center of the country, as the southern town of Mitzpeh Ramon also received its fair share of snow. Residents and visitors to the region awoke to an unexpected white morning, claiming that they haven't seen this much snow for several years. The scene of the Ramon crater, covered in white, offered a rare and spectacular vision. And while there are those who hate the winter storms, there are others whom some accuse of having questionable sanity because they actually look forward to the season's infrequent raging seas. Both kite and windsurfers took advantage of the storm over the past several days to enter the choppy waters, hoping to catch the perfect wave, some of which are as high as two-story buildings. IBA's Ari O'Sullivan spoke with expert surfer and blogger Yaron Carmi about riding the sometimes treacherous waves.
Generally, we don't look for the terrible weather. We look for the perfect surf. We look for the perfect wave to ride on. So the problem in Israel is that the high waves only arrive in winter storms. We would like them to appear also in the summer, but unfortunately, this is not the case. So,
well, can you describe what it's like to be actually in these waves?
Yeah, when you're surfing in such a high wind, high waves, what actually happens is like surfing between buildings. It's like when you're traveling with your car in a village, and on the right and on the left you have a two floors building, and 7-8 meter high. It's more like the same. It's a huge mountain, it's a huge wall of water, and it's a huge energy, and they're breaking on your right, on your left, and sometimes the waves when you're riding the wave, you catch a very high speed on the wave itself. The waves are traveling in a speed of about 20 to 30 kilometers per hour, the wave itself, and you have to catch up with its speed, and then the waves begin to break, and you're trying to perform some maneuvers and to feel its energy.
It sounds very dangerous. Why do you do this, Yaron?
The excitement of riding huge waves is something undescribable. Once a year, or once in 2 years, when you manage to catch even one perfect wave and ride it for, let's say, 20, 30 seconds, it's a feeling that you cannot describe. It's something that you run over and over in your head for a year or 2 years later on, and you feel the energy of this monster. It's like becoming a friend of a dragon.
Looks pretty amazing, but I think I'll pass. And there's good news concerning tomorrow's weather forecast. We can expect fair conditions with an additional slight rise in temperatures, although strong easterly winds will prevail in the north. Here's the forecast at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. I'll be back at this desk tomorrow to bring you the latest news from Israel. We now leave you with more images of the snow-covered Golan and Galilee regions. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a great evening and shalom from Jerusalem.